And have the trial rosters been provided to the scoring panelists?
I apologize, Your Honor. Was that question directed towards both the counsel of prosecution or defense or the scoring panelists?
It was to anybody who had knowledge of that.
I am unaware. I apologize.
Okay. The scoring panelists, have you been provided with a trial roster?
No.
I have not.
Okay.
Your Honor, if you can give me a second to pull that up, then I can put that in the chat.
Yes.
And that's fine. While you're doing that, I'm just going to ask if anybody has any objection to being recorded for this particular round.
No.
Then I just want to also inform the teams as well as anybody in the gallery that the Colorado Bar Association might be taking photographs of this round, and that grants your participation in this round grants automatic consent to that. And then I also am going to ask if anybody in the gallery who's connected with the teams and who's not competing, that includes student members, coaches of other schools, coaches of the same school but different teams, if they could just leave the courtroom now. And then for this particular round, there will be no recesses allowed, except for those granted for a health emergency, and definitely not between the end of witness examination and the beginning of closing arguments. I will be the one who decides any sort of time discrepancies between each particular timekeeper. And then this is directed towards the scorekeepers. Do any of you have any reason to be biased in judging either team?
No.
I do not.
And if you are concerned or develop a concern, you can direct that to the state tournament coordinator or the CBA mock trial committee member, and arrangements will be made to replace you. Then also any teams and coaches that have any disputes coming from this particular round can just go ahead and report that to the competition, the CBA mock trial. Then compliance with your time requirements will be considered per your scoring. And then I just want to confirm with the coaches or team members and timekeepers that there's no conflict in the room.
Your Honor, we have somebody who was kicked out of the meeting and they're trying to rejoin and they're not allowed in the meeting at the moment.
Okay, thanks for letting me know. I think that our courtroom monitor will be able to help with that.
Okay.
And can you tell me who that is?
Lena Dudgeon.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
I can just hang on until she's here. Okay. Okay. So is everybody who's supposed to be here? As far as
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, I don't see anything contrary. Okay, so I'm going to, at this point, ask the prosecution to introduce their participating team members.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. My name is Edmond Kunith, and I will be directing Detective Jordan Markowitz and crossing Avery Becker.
Good morning, Your Honor. My name is Alex Kaiser. I will be directly examining Kyle Cusack and cross-examining Blake Van Owens.
And then if the defense could introduce themselves.
I'm a part of prosecution, sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. I am Ananya Shrestha. I will be directing Alex Cifuentes and crossing Taylor Perkins.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. I am going to be playing Kyle Cusack.
Your Honor, my name is Trisha Bologna, and I will be playing Alex Cifuentes.
Hello, Your Honor. My name is Natalie McLean, and I'll be playing Jordan Markowitz.
Okay, and now if I could have an introduction of the defense.
Hello, Your Honor. My name is Sebastian Solis. I will be directing Taylor Perkins and crossing Kyle Cusack.
Hello, I'm Lena Dudgeon. I will be crossing Markowitz and defending Avery Becker.
Hello, my name is Menace Largan. I'll be crossing Alex Cifuentes and directing Blake Van Owen.
Good evening, Your Honor. Oh, may I go?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, Your Honor. My name is Olivia Benden, but I will be playing Taylor Perkins this evening.
Great.
Good evening, Your Honor. My name is Zach Billings, and I will be playing Avery Becker this evening.
Good evening, Your Honor. I'm Oliver Howe, and I will be Blake Van Owens this evening.
Great. Thank you, everybody. So at this point, I am going to swear all of you guys in. So if all of the members in the courtroom can please stand. And in an effort to maintain a level of professionalism and uphold the ethical conduct, and raise your right hand, and I'm going to read you the oath and ask you if you will abide by it, okay? So, team members, please raise your right hand. Team members, do you promise that the presentation you are about to give will faithfully and truthfully conform to the facts and rules of the mock trial competition?
Yes.
Yes.
He's nodding. I see no shaking of heads. Witnesses, do you promise that the testimony you're about to give will faithfully and truthfully conform to your witness statements? That you will not add material facts or opinions which are not contained in the case problem, and that you will follow the rules and procedures of the mock trial competition?
Yes.
Everybody nodding their heads. And then gallery members, including teacher and attorney coaches, family members and friends, please raise your right hands. Do you promise to represent yourselves as positive role models and to behave in a manner that exemplifies ethical and professional sportsmanship during and after this mock trial round? I see a big nod. And then scoring panelists, please raise your right hands. Do you promise to adjudicate the mock trial competition as fairly and objectively as possible in accordance with the facts, procedures, and rules of the mock trial competition?
I do.
Okay. And at this point, the prosecution can proceed with opening statements.
Your Honor, please excuse me for a moment. May we please present preliminary matters?
Absolutely. I'm willing to hear any pretrial motions in limine that the parties may have.
Thank you, Your Honor. First, may I please present the stipulated facts upon which both prosecution and defense counsels have agreed to?
Yes, please.
All right. Are you in view of the stipulated facts?
Yes, I can see it.
Thank you. And in further preliminary matters, I would like to request to upon both the prosecution and defense counsels to remain seated throughout the duration of the trial due to the unfortunate circumstances in which we are in virtually. as well as for any time in closing arguments, as well as examinations to be reserved for redirect as well as rebuttal, as well as I believe that is all I have, Your Honor.
And the court will grant all of those requests. Is there anything on the behalf of the defense?
No, Your Honor.
Okay. So now the prosecution may proceed with opening statements.
How far would you go to avenge the loss of your greatest passion? Sharpie someone's car? Trash someone's house? For some, this manifests itself as the removing of such a stain from existence. From Stalin to Xi Jinping, has resulted in the death of many who do not deserve such a bleak end. This is the case for Mackenzie Brockman, a defense attorney and a coach for his local high school's mock trial team. Brockman was loved by most of his team and was relatively successful in his law career, but as such golden tales so frequently end, his life was cut short. On March 6, 2020, Brockman was found murdered inside his own home and left to sully in a pool of his own blood. The person responsible for such a tragedy? Avery Becker, a disgraced member of Brockman's team of mock trial team members. Becker had so frequently fought with Brockman over his inability to conduct himself responsibly. You will not only hear of the story of how Mr. Brockman was found in a pool of his own cold blood from Detective Jordan Markowitz, a detective for 7 years and with the Denver Police Department for 13, but also how Becker had a long-running feud with Mr. Brockman, even going as far as to vandalize his car, and how the defendant was going to break into the house of the victim and vandalize it from Alex Cifuentes, a fellow mock trial team member, and finally how the murder was committed from Kyle Cusack, a crime scene reconstruction expert from the Colorado Bureau of Investigation, who has been doing the job for 19 years straight. Through a combination of the testimonies, it will be shown how Becker not only wrote it, the message on Brockman's car, but knew it, what they're doing, and did it. And from the other side of the aisle, the murderer themselves, the murderer's best friend, and a professor who calls himself Blake Van Owen, who not only makes assumptions in their theory, but also is straight up being paid to throw shade. Van Owen has the audacity to accuse this guy named Blair Rowlands of something his dad did 7 years ago, when Blair was 11. Let's not even get started on how Van Owen calls Kyle Cusack egotistical and describes a theory comparable to that of a struggling novelist. Us prosecutors need to prove that we have the right person, and beyond a reasonable doubt. We know this, and that's exactly what we'll do. Now, why is Avery Becker suspected of murdering poor Mr. Brockman? Simple. Becker's phone was pinged at the scene of the crime, and at the same time frame as the murder. Conveniently, the defense says that Becker was at a completely different location, and the phone was lost. Becker is being charged with 3 crimes: first-degree murder, second-degree burglary, and criminal mischief, of which all of them are serious. Murder being the ending of someone's life, burglary meaning the unlawful entrance into someone's house, and mischief being the damage to someone's property. To boil it down, all that needs to be proven is that Becker was in Mr. Brockman's house, and the findings from Detective Cusack and his cell phone tracing will do just that. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, they are all that stands between Avery Becker and a cell. If you think that Becker was in Mr. Brockman's house, all you need to do is find him guilty.
And from the defense?
Yes, Your Honor. If it please the court, Your Honor, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, opposing counsel. Today, you're going to learn that the prosecution's case is based off of a ring and a ping. Today, you're going to learn that an unreliable cell phone tower ping and a ring doorbell will be the base of the prosecution's entire case. Ladies and gentlemen, I am Sebastian Solis, and together with my colleagues Manus Largan and Lena Dudgeon, we represent Avery Becker, who stands here having been charged with felony murder. The case before you involves the death of Mackenzie Brockman, a criminal defense attorney and mock trial coach at Colorado High School. On Friday, March 6, 2020, Detective Jordan Markowitz responded to a report of a person possibly passed out on a front porch. It turned out that that person had died due to a singular stab wound. The evidence will show that Detective Markowitz began the investigation by accessing the deceased's phone, then discovering activity from mock trial. Colorado High School provided a list of contact information for members of the mock trial team. The first student contacted, Alex Fuentes, pointed Markowitz to Avery Becker as having been kicked off the mock trial team, and stating that he would be trashing Brackman's house while Brackman was at work. Markowitz interviewed Cifuentes, and he recounted a string of texts between himself and Becker, but failed to bring his phone to the interview. Cifuentes later sent screenshots of the text in question to Markowitz to the original phone record, but the original phone record of the text will not be in evidence here today. In addition to Markowitz and Cifuentes, the prosecution will call Kyle Kuzak, a crime scene reconstructionist. Kuzak will testify that an unknown intruder entered the home of the deceased and that the deceased sensed the presence of the intruder and armed himself with a large kitchen knife. That a struggle began at the back door and continued throughout the kitchen. And the perpetrator gained control of the knife and stabbed the deceased once in the back. Kuzak will also lay out the theory that the struggle occurred in close proximity, hand-to-hand like combat, and that during the combat, the victim placed the perpetrator in a bear hug, from which the perpetrator reached around and stabbed the victim in the back with such force that a 7.5-inch knife penetrated the victim's shoulder blade and nicked his aorta. Finally, Kuzak will testify that the weapon was found beside the victim after having been pulled out of the shoulder blade by the victim, even though his aorta had been punctured. To clear Becker's name, the defense will call Taylor Perkins, Professor Blake Van Owen, and Avery Becker. Taylor Perkins does not need to be here. She is here to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth. She will testify that she and Avery Becker were nowhere near the crime scene when the crime occurred, and that she was with Avery the entire day the murder was committed, looking for Avery's lost phone. Taylor Perkins is here to show that Avery Becker had no motivation to commit this heinous crime, and Taylor Perkins is here to show that Avery Becker is not a vicious person. Avery Becker is also testifying today, and he was practically blindsided by the accusations brought up by the prosecution. He's here today to clear his name and to tell you his side of the story. He will tell you about how he had no real passion for mock trial and was merely annoyed by his removal from the team. He will also tell you that he has no idea where the victim lived and was not there at the time of the crime. Professor Blake Van Owen is here today. Van Owen is a former police officer and now private investigator and teaches police practices at CU Denver. In reviewing the evidence and conducting his own investigation, Van Owen has noticed inconsistencies in the prosecution's case. He will testify about their rushed investigation, such as the murder weapon's origin, scuff marks that cannot be determined when or who made them, the nearly impossible way the prosecution says the victim was killed, along with problems with the prosecution's physical data, including screenshots of the text messages that were taken of Avery's alleged plan, even though such screenshots can be doctored. The inaccuracy and lack of reliability of cell phone tower evidence being put forth, and the general sloppiness and negligence of the police and prosecution, including their failure to look for any other suspect, such as Blair Rollins, who will be shown to have had a superior motive to Avery Becker's and has been nowhere to be found since the day of the murder. The prosecution must prove all aspects of this case beyond a reasonable doubt. Please listen carefully to the testimonies to be presented here today, and be aware of what's not being presented today, including any eyewitness who saw the crime being committed, any definitive identification of the perpetrator, any other forensic evidence tying Avery Becker to the crime scene, or investigation of any other suspect. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, at the end of the presentation of evidence, co-counsel Lena Dudgeon will summarize and will respectfully ask for the verdict of not guilty, asking you to avoid putting an innocent young man in prison. Nothing more, Your Honor.
Thank you. And the prosecution can call their first witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. The prosecution would like to call Detective Jordan Markowitz to the stand. Your Honor, may I please proceed with questioning?
Yes, you may.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon. Good evening, Detective. Please excuse me for that. Can you please state your name, spelling the last?
My name is Jordan Markowitz, Markowitz.
And what's your relevance to this case?
I was a detective investigating the death of Mackenzie Brackman.
Can you describe your occupation a bit more?
Yes, I am a member of the Denver Police Department, and I work specifically with cellular technology.
And how long have you worked there?
I've worked there for 13 years, 7 years as a detective.
And what do you do in terms of cellular technology?
I help gather CDRs, call detail records, and cell tower records. Yeah.
And do you have any training with this specialty?
Yes, I have a cellular technology and forensic data recovery certification from the American Academy of Law Enforcement.
And how often do you use this expertise?
On a regular basis and in over 50 cases.
Your Honor, I would like to offer Detective Jordan Markowitz as an expert witness in the fields of cellular technology as well as standard detective work.
Any objection from the defense?
No objection, Your Honor.
Then Detective Markowitz shall be tendered as an expert in this trial.
Thank you, Your Honor. Now, I would like to direct to your recollection on the day of March 6, 2020, the day of the murder. What was your involvement in the situation on that day?
I was investigating the house of Mackenzie Brackman.
And what did you witness?
I first witnessed Mackenzie Brackman's body laying right inside the doorway.
And right in front of the doorway, did you notice anything else there as well?
Yes, I noticed a Ring doorbell.
After investigating this, what did you do next?
I walked around to the side of the house and to the backyard, and on the side of the house, I noticed a camera, and at the back door, I also noticed another Ring camera.
From what I found, you've investigated the outside of the home. Did you also investigate on the inside?
Yes, the inside was in slight disarray. There was a broken plate, an open knife drawer, an empty slot in a knife block, and some blood splatter.
And throughout the rest of the house, was there anything noticeable?
Mackenzie Brackman's body was on the floor. The front door was open. The knife was on the floor with blood around it, and there was cast off blood on the wall and ceiling.
Now, I'd like to redirect to discuss some of the technology used. In terms of which, going to the cameras, did you utilize anything with the Ring cameras?
Yes, I went onto Brackman's phone and found his Ring account and noticed that he was paying an extra fee every month to see recorded events. So I was able to gather videos from March 6th, 2020.
And how did you gain the access to this account?
I was able to find passwords and usernames.
And going more into the Ring account that you mentioned, did you do anything with it?
Well, I witnessed all the videos. Yeah.
Your Honor, I would like to present what has been marked as Exhibit 10.
Are you presenting, have you shown it to the defense?
I'm waiting for my co-counsel to pull up the exhibit.
Okay.
Thank you. And let the record reflect I have shown the opposing counsel a clean and unmarked copy of what has been marked as Exhibit 10.
It shall reflect.
Now, Detective Markowitz, I'd like to ask, what is this video here?
This shows the intruder walking up to the front door and walking away after realizing that the door is locked.
And where was this video taken?
Outside the home of Mackenzie Brackman.
And where did you get this from?
I got this from the Ring account.
Has this been altered in any way since you've last seen it?
No.
Your Honor, I would like to admit Exhibit 10.
Any objection from the defense?
No objection, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Exhibit 10 shall be admitted.
Thank you, Your Honor. Co-counsel, you may now take down the exhibit. Now, for the duration of this case, did you contact anyone involved with this?
Yes, I contacted the mock trial team at the high school.
And from where were you able to get those contacts of the mock trial team?
I looked through Mackenzie Brackman's phone and noticed that he had a lot of messages and emails from mock trial.
And from there, did you contact anybody through these contacts?
I contacted the entire team, but Alex Fuentes stood out the most.
And did you speak with Alex Fuentes?
Yes, he informed me that another student was planning on trashing Brackman's home, so I called him in for an interview.
And after knowing that, what did you do next?
I called him in for an interview, and I was hoping to see these texts, but he forgot his phone at home, so he had to send me screenshots instead.
Ah, I see. And in terms of, once you found out this information about Avery Becker, did you contact this individual?
Yes, I called her in for an interview, but it was canceled by her attorney right before it was supposed to happen.
From that, without the interview, were you able to gain anything else from it?
Yes, I decided to put out a search warrant for her phone, but her attorney informed me that it was lost, but I was able to gain a cell phone number.
And from there, what were you able to do with the cell phone number?
I was able to put get a court order for information from her service provider to get CDRs.
Your Honor, I would like to present what has been marked as Exhibit 15.
If you present it to defense, that's fine.
Sounds good. I will wait for co-counsel to pull up the exhibit. There we are. Let the record reflect that I have shown opposing counsel a clean and unmarked copy of Exhibit 15.
It shall reflect.
Now, Detective Markowitz, can you describe what this is?
These are call detail records for Avery Becker's cell phone.
And what day were these call detail records from?
March 6th, 2020.
And who created this diagram?
I did.
Is this a fair and accurate copy since you've last seen it?
Yes.
Your Honor, I would like to move to admit Exhibit 15.
Any objection from the defense?
Yes, objection, hearsay.
Response?
Your Honor, in terms of this diagram, this was created by Detective Markowitz himself, in which, through his expertise in cellular technology, as well as being a detective with the Denver Police Department, is completely adequate in order to create diagrams such as this from the information provided.
Exhibit 15 will be admitted.
Thank you, Your Honor. Co-counsel, you may now take down that. Now, in terms of this call detail record, what does it portray?
Well, it shows that Avery Becker's cell phone was at the cell tower closest to her house at 12:47, then at 12:55 near Rock Creek Parkway, which could possibly be on the way to Brackman's home, and then lastly at 13:05, 13:06, and 13:17 at the cell tower closest to Brackman's home.
And how was this information useful?
Well, it showed that Avery Becker's phone was there at those times.
Now, after viewing the scene, the ring account videos, as well as the call detail records, what was your hypothesis on what had happened based on your experience as a detective?
I believe that Brackman interrupted an intruder breaking in and got stabbed.
No further questions, Your Honor.
And cross-examination?
Yes. May I proceed?
Yes, you may.
Good evening, Detective Markowitz. I'm Lena Dudgeon, and I'll be asking you a few questions about the event that brought us to court tonight. So when you entered Mackenzie Brackman's house, you observed that he was laying face down and there was a knife next to his body, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
And you have concluded that that knife came from a knife block?
Yes.
Objection, relevance?
where the knife came from, basically, it shows how the defendant came in and would have stabbed Mr. Brackman.
Overruled. You may proceed to counsel.
Thank you. So you notice that it came from the knife block.
Yes.
And you having said that, so it didn't match any of the knives.
No, it did not.
And so there was also a half open knife drawer in the kitchen, correct?
Yes.
So did you make an assumption that that knife had in fact come from the knife block?
Yes.
Did you do any of the research into where the knife could have possibly come from?
No, I did not.
So you didn't look into maybe one of the suspect's households?
No, I didn't.
And in fact, you never even had a warrant for Mr. Becker's household, did you?
No.
You could have received a warrant for the house, much like you did for the phone.
Yes, but I was passing by and it had just happened and I was there.
So you also noticed that there was blood splatter on the floor, correct?
Yes.
And photos were taken of that blood splatter?
Yes, they were.
Somehow those files had become corrupted.
Yes.
And so nobody here tonight can view those photos?
No.
So we are just taking your word for it that those photos had existed?
Yes, because they unfortunately got corrupted.
And that the blood splatter was in fact there?
Yes, it was.
So you guys didn't even think to back up the files?
I'm not in charge of that.
Okay. So you mentioned the ring videos when you had entered the house.
Yes.
And so may you pull up Exhibit 13? Can my co-counsel also pull up Exhibit 13?
You may.
Thank you.
Apologies, Your Honor. I'm just getting it to load. My bad.
That's fine.
So is this one of the videos that you had obtained from the ring video, from the ring system?
Yeah.
And it shows the suspect running out of the house, correct?
Yes, it does.
Is this an exact and accurate video from the house?
Yes.
May I enter this exhibit?
Any objection from the prosecution?
No objections, Your Honor.
Then it shall be admitted.
Thank you. So so this video shows no face of the suspect, correct?
No, it does not.
It only shows a person running into the house.
It shows a person running out of the house, yes.
Oh, sorry, out of the house, my bad. And so you can absolutely have no identification to who that is running out of the house?
No.
So that could have technically been anybody running out of the house?
Yes, but based on other evidence, it could point to some people.
Okay. Nor does it show a time or date on the video,
No.
does it?
No.
And did you listen to like the video when it was playing, like the background?
Yeah.
And so you hear a door opening and a door closing?
Yes.
And like some other street sounds? Is that all that you hear?
I believe so, yes.
Okay, thank you. So you came to the conclusion that this was Avery Becker based on one of the mock trial students being Alex Fuentes?
Yes, and call detail records.
Yes, so Alex had told you that Avery had texted him leading up to the days of the murder claiming that he wanted to go and vandalize Avery Becker's house.
Yes.
And so you received those through screenshots, correct?
Yes, I did.
So you never physically had Avery Becker's phone? Not Avery Becker, sorry, Alex Fuentes' phone.
Yeah, I never had their phone because they didn't bring it to the interview.
Could you have obtained his phone at some point?
I did not.
Could you have, though?
Objection, speculation. Your Honor, in terms of this, in terms of the speculation, despite Markowitz's expertise, we do not know whether for a definite fact Detective Markowitz could have gotten Alex Fuentes' cell phone.
Response from the defense.
It's a phone. Both Alex, he mentioned that he had the screenshots and that he didn't bring the phone to the interview. So I think that shows that it could have maybe, that he could have had the phone another time for maybe another interview or just a follow-up.
I'm going to overrule that objection.
Thank you. So let's talk about Avery Becker's cell phone now. So we found that the phone was pinging off of cell towers in the area of Mr. Brackman's house.
Yes.
May you view Exhibit 15, which I believe has already been submitted or entered? Co-counsel, may you bring that up real quick?
Yes, let me just get it.
Thank you. Exhibit 15, which is the cell phone towers, I believe.
My apologies. Let me just pull that up right.
Thank you. Okay, so you mentioned to yourself when you were in your statement that sometimes cell phone towers can be inaccurate, correct?
Yes, it's a possibility.
Having said that, you still assumed that these to be accurate?
Yes, because the only time that it uses a different thing is when one cell tower has too many people on it, and that's unlikely in this situation.
Okay, I understand. Thank you. Okay, so the first contact to the phone was at 12:47 in the morning?
Yes.
Or well, in the afternoon?
Yeah.
And you noticed that that number was in fact Avery Becker's friend, Taylor Perkins?
Yes, yeah.
Did you ever look at Taylor Perkins' phone?
No, I did not.
Did you even think to interview Taylor Perkins?
No, because I follow where the evidence takes me, not where I think the case would go.
But interviewing Taylor Perkins could have confirmed both where Avery Becker was and if these texts had in fact happened and calls?
It could have, yes.
You do understand that Taylor Perkins is in fact Avery Becker's alibi?
Yes.
So Becker's lawyers mentioned that he had lost his phone on March 5th.
Yeah.
Yet you only got the records from March 6th.
Yes, because it was the most important date since it was the day of the murder.
I understand that, but you knew that the phone was lost on March 5th. So if you were to obtain the records of March 5th, you could see where it was on March 5th.
Possibly.
So does the fact that Perkins was repeatedly calling Avery Becker's phone comply with the fact that it was lost?
Yes, but Avery did not pick up.
So if you look back at the exhibit, you note both Becker's and Rollins' homes, correct?
Yes.
So therefore, did you know that Rollins was a suspect?
I did, but I felt like it was unlikely for that to happen.
You are aware that he is currently missing.
Yes, I am aware of that.
And you are aware that his father went to prison due to the actions of Mackenzie Brackman.
Yep.
Yet you didn't do any further research into Blair Wallace?
No, because evidence didn't take me there, like physical evidence.
You assume that Becker had left his house at 12:50 p.m.
Yes.
and the phone stopped working at about 11:20?
Yes.
So that gives Becker 30 minutes to go from his house to Brackman's house and murder him and then leave.
Yes.
Did you ever drive the suspected route to see how long that could have taken?
No, I did not.
If you also look, you see that that at 12:55, Becker's phone had pinged off of a cell phone tower in the area of his house, in the area of the mall. I'm sorry.
At 12:55, it was near Rock Creek Parkway.
It was the cell phone tower was at the mall, right?
Yes.
Do you think Becker could have in fact been at the mall then?
Yes, but immediately after that, the phone was pinged at Brackman's home, so that doesn't really.
So you assumed that he was at Brackman's house, but you didn't assume that he was at the mall?
Well, I don't know why he would go to the mall.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Any redirect?
Yes, Your Honor. Detective Markowitz, turning back to the point in terms of which, based off all the evidence, you did, in terms of the evidence, have you said that you follow where the evidence takes you?
Yes.
And from there, based off all the evidence of the ring videos, the cell tower data, your observations of the scene, and your interviews all culminated together, what is your hypothesis based on what had happened?
Avery Becker was at Brackman's home.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Okay. May this witness be excused?
Yes, Your Honor.
Does the prosecution have any other witnesses?
Your Honor, we'd like to call Alex Cifuentes to the stand. Your Honor, may I begin questioning Alex Cifuentes?
You may.
Hello, please state your first name and spell your last name for the record. You're muted.
Sorry. Hello, my name is Alex Cifuentes, Sifuentes.
Why are you here today?
I'm here today because my beloved mock trial coach, Mackenzie Brackman, was murdered.
What school do you attend?
I am currently a senior at Colorado High School.
Do you know Avery Becker?
I do.
Can you identify Avery Becker? Your Honor, can we request for Avery Becker to turn on their camera for identification purposes?
That's fine.
Avery Becker is wearing a blue blazer, I believe, and a tie and a white shirt with a red wall behind him.
Thank you. Your Honor, let the record reflect that the defendant, Avery Becker, has been identified.
It shall subject to cross-examination.
Alex, how do you know Avery Becker?
He went to Colorado High School last year and I did mock trial with him.
Okay. And what was your relationship with Avery Becker like?
We were really good friends, basically best friends. He was the one who got me interested in mock trial originally my freshman year.
And you stated that you worked with Avery Becker on the mock trial team. Did you also practice with them?
I did.
And did you work with them during competitions?
Yeah, I did work with him.
And how would you describe Avery Becker's work ethic in mock trial?
You know, he was never really that prepared for competition and practice, and he was pretty good at improvising and making things up on the spot, but it was really tough for the team and it made us really anxious all the time.
And how would you describe the relationship between you and Mr. Brackman?
For me, Brackman was a really big role model in my life. He was a talented litigator, and he was always like looking for ways that our team could improve, and he really cared about our team.
And how did you work on the mock trial team?
I took my role on the team really seriously, and I'm really passionate about it. I would do my assignments the day that they were assigned. I would go home and make drafts and edit them and rewrite them and create outlines until I thought that they were perfect.
And did you see Avery and Mr. Brackman work together?
Yeah.
How would you describe Avery's relationship with Mr. Brackman?
They had a pretty strained relationship because, as I mentioned before, Avery would come to practice late and unprepared, and it became a source of conflict between the two of them. And Brackman would usually get on him about it and try to get him to fix it, but Avery wouldn't usually make any changes.
So you stated that Avery Becker would consistently arrive to the meetings late. How did Brackman respond?
It got on his nerves a lot, but he didn't really do anything about it until one time when he was late for about the millionth time, and he demoted Avery to the mock trials B team.
After that mock trial practice, what happened?
Becker and Brackman had a conversation, and Avery got pretty upset, so he decided to write Worst Attorney Award across the hood of Brackman's beloved white Porsche in permanent marker.
What happened after Avery Becker vandalized Mr. Brackman's car?
Brackman decided to kick Avery off the mock trial team for good, and there's honestly a good chance that what Avery did is going to make us have to forfeit going to state. It's really unfair to the entire team.
Shortly after that, did you have any communication with Avery Becker?
I did.
Your Honor, I would like to show Exhibit 14 to the defendant and to opposing counsel. If my co-counsel could show it or screen share.
That's fine.
Thank you. So I would like to bring your attention to the text messages between you and Avery Becker. What is in front of you?
These are text messages that I got from Avery after Brackman kicked him off the mock trial team.
And were these text messages delivered to your phone?
They were.
And who is this conversation between?
It's between me and Avery.
Were these altered in any way before you received them or before you sent them to Detective Markowitz?
Absolutely not.
Your Honor, I would like to enter Exhibit 14 into evidence.
Any objection from the defense?
Yes, Your Honor. I'd like to object to hearsay.
Your Honor, this is not hearsay on the grounds of this is a party opponent statement.
Response from the defense?
Your Honor, based on their responses, I'd like to object to lack of foundation.
Your Honor, can I
I'm gonna have the defense explain that a little bit more.
Your Honor, we don't know that Avery sent these messages. We know that they appear under Avery's name on Alex Cifuentes' phone.
Your Honor, may I respond?
Yes, you may.
Alex Cifuentes has said that these are texts sent by Avery Becker to her. That's all the confirmation we need. Alex Cifuentes has no reason to lie, nor would they lie under oath.
I'm going to allow the admission of Exhibit 14.
Thank you. So now turning our attention to Exhibit 14, what did Avery Becker say to you?
He asked me if I could talk to Coach Brackman about letting him back on the team after he got kicked off.
And sorry. And what was Mr. Brackman's decision?
After I talked to him, he decided not to because he was still really mad about the whole car situation.
Did you tell Avery Becker Mr. Brackman's response?
I did.
And what did Avery Becker text you next?
He said that I believe it was along the lines of, if Brackman was mad about what I did to his car, just wait and see what I do to his house.
What did you tell Avery Becker after they said that?
I asked him what he was planning on doing.
And what did Avery Becker text you next?
He said that he was planning on trashing Brackman's house.
And was that the last text message you received?
Yes.
What happened after that?
Excuse me. A detective called me, and I really didn't want to rat out Avery because he's such a good friend to me, but I didn't want to lie because the situation was really serious.
Okay. And after that, did you have an interview with an investigator?
Yeah, and they accused me of doing unthinkable things like stealing Avery's phone or giving it to Blair Rollins. It's ridiculous.
Did you steal Avery Becker's phone?
I didn't.
And speaking of Blair Rollins, does Blair Rollins attend CHS?
Yes, but I barely know her.
So you didn't know Blair Rollins?
Not really.
And would you ever fabricate text messages between you and Avery Becker?
Absolutely not. There's no reason for me to.
Lastly, I'd like to ask if you and Avery Becker were rivals.
Of course not. Avery and I were teammates. We pushed each other to do better, and we were friends. And I don't know what's going to happen after this whole situation, but we used to have a really good relationship.
Thank you. No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you, counsel. Cross-examination.
Yes, Your Honor. Good afternoon, Mrs. Cifuentes. My name is Manus Largan, and I'll be crossing you today. You're a senior at Colorado High School, correct?
I am, yes.
And you're a member of the mock trial team?
Yes.
Would you consider yourself friends with Avery Becker?
Of course, yes.
Did Avery and Coach Brackman have a negative relationship?
At times.
So that's a yes.
Yes.
And this negative relationship went too far when Avery showed up to practice late, correct?
Yes.
And it's correct that Avery wrote Worst Attorney Award?
Yes.
You never saw Avery write this or the writing on the porch. Is that correct?
Yes.
Moving on. After this incident, Avery texted you, correct?
He did.
And these texts are now known as Exhibit 14, correct?
Yes.
Is there a timestamp on these messages?
There is. At the top of the screenshot.
Would you like to review the screenshot?
Sure.
Can I please have co-counsel pull that up? Exhibit 14. Excuse me, Your Honor. Can I just ask co-counsel one more time to pull up Exhibit 14?
That's fine.
Sorry, I didn't know that was screen share.
No worries.
May I ask Sebastian to do it? My notability isn't working, which is what the exhibits are on.
No problem. We all have technical issues.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Here, I have it pulled up. Let me share my screen.
Let me ask you again, Ms. Cifuentes. Is there a timestamp on these messages?
There is at the top of the phone.
Let me get this straight. Is that timestamp the timestamp of when the messages were sent or when the screenshot of the messages were taken?
My apologies. I thought you were initially referencing the phone and not necessarily the text messages themselves.
No worries. Okay, moving on. Was this the first time Avery had texted you?
Yes.
So in these messages, Avery asked you to get her back on the mock trial team, correct?
Yes.
Excuse me, let me just go back to my last question. This was the first time Avery had texted you, correct?
After the murder, yes.
That wasn't my question. Was this the first time Avery had ever texted you?
Yes.
I thought you were close friends with Avery.
Well, we didn't necessarily have that much interaction outside of mock trial, but during mock trial we were definitely good friends.
Objection, hearsay.
Could I have next? Excuse me, Your Honor, you can go ahead.
If the defense wants to respond, that's fine.
Can I have an explanation to why that would be hearsay?
Neither Alex nor Avery have said that whether or not this was sorry, it would not be hearsay. Objection, facts not in evidence.
And defense response to that.
I'll move on. In these messages, Avery asked you to try and get her back on the mock trial team, correct?
Yes.
And she also said, or he also said, excuse me, that he was going to break into his house and trash it.
Yes.
And it's correct that Avery said to his house, not to Coach Brackman.
Yes.
Moving on. A few days after these messages, you and Avery saw each other at the Fry Shack, correct?
We did, yeah.
Did you believe that Avery had gotten over the incident?
No, and honestly, I also agree that it was pretty unfair, and I talked to him about it, but he got upset.
So that's a no.
No, yes.
Okay. And at this same night at the Fry Shack, you played a game on Avery's phone, correct?
Yeah.
So you had your phone on Avery, you had your hands on Avery's phone the day before it went missing?
Yes, that doesn't mean I stole it.
Moving on. After these incidents, you were contacted by a police detective, true?
Yes.
And their name was Detective Markowitz?
Yep.
And when they were talking to you, they wanted to see your phone, but you didn't have it because it was at home charging, correct?
Yeah, I absentmindedly left it on the charger before we had to leave for the interview.
Did you offer to bring it at all?
Well, I planned to because, I would normally bring my phone, but I just happened to forget it.
Excuse me, I may have been misunderstood. After you realized you didn't have your phone and you were doing the interview with Detective Markowitz, did you offer to bring the phone?
The detective just told me to send the screenshots and that would be fine.
But did you offer to bring the phone?
No.
And she told you that she didn't need it and she'd be fine with the screenshots, correct?
She did.
And you didn't want to bring this phone, even though this is a homicide case, correct?
It's not that I didn't want to bring it. That's outside. I didn't get asked to.
And you knew that you were going to talk to Detective Markowitz, correct?
Yeah.
Moving on. You no longer have this phone, correct?
Nope, the battery got shot.
You've traded it in for a new phone.
Yep. About 3 months ago?
You can't tell the jury where this phone is, correct?
No,
Did
no.
you tell the detective that you were getting rid of this phone?
No, I didn't know that the battery was going to get ruined, so.
Did you ever give the detective opportunity to download any information from this phone?
No.
Did you yourself download anything from this phone?
No.
Moving on. Isn't it true that you were happy Avery wasn't coming back for a mock trial?
Well, I thought that it would be good for me to get the roles that he might, but I still tried to get him back onto the team.
So it meant a bigger role for you.
Yeah.
That's what you wanted, isn't it?
Well, wouldn't anyone want that?
You were excited about Avery not being on the team so you could get bigger roles, correct?
You could say that, but I did still try to get him back onto the team.
So is that a yes to my question?
Sure.
No further questions.
Can you redirect?
Yes, Your Honor. Alex, Avery was caught by Brackman vandalizing his car and admitted to you in the text messages that he vandalized Brackman's car, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And would you ever lie about these text messages?
Absolutely not. I have no reason to. And it's honestly really hard for me because Avery is one of my good friends, and I would rather be doing about anything else right now.
And would you ever lie about Avery to get a bigger role on the mock trial team?
No, as I said, I tried to get him back onto the team. So even though it may have meant that I got a bigger role, I still did what I could to help my friend.
Thank you. That is all.
And may this witness be excused?
Yes, Your Honor.
Does the prosecution have any other witnesses?
Your Honor, the prosecution calls Kyle Cusack to the stand. Hello there. Can you state your name and spell it for the court record, please?
Yeah. My name is Kyle Cusack, K-U-Z-A-K.
And what is your occupation?
I am a certified Colorado Bureau of Investigation, certified crime scene reconstruction investigator.
How long have you been on the Colorado Bureau of Investigation for?
I have been with the Colorado Bureau of Investigation for a continuous 19 years now.
What do you do for the Colorado Bureau of Investigation?
I reconstruct various crime scenes, including home invasions, burglaries, and other property crimes, homicides, domestic violence, fatal accidents, and armed robberies.
Do you have any other relevant experience?
Yes, I have spent the last 3 years doing CSR work for the city of Denver.
Can you explain your investigative process?
I use a 5-step process in all cases that I manage or that I am investigating in. The 5 steps involve recognition and documentation, collection of evidence, evaluation of evidence, hypothesis and testing, and reconstruction. The first step is when I use a witness tracking spreadsheet to summarize key points of information in the case. The second and third steps involve me preparing material for my formal analysis, and my final step involves me using peer review to make my final crime scene reconstruction report.
How are you qualified to talk about crime scene reconstruction?
This 5-step sequence, as well as my expertise in the 19 years I've been with the Colorado Bureau of Investigation, help. But I also use a linear, sequential, and masking process, which uses information in a step-by-step manner to offset influence of context, creating more investigative questions and then more analysis for the best explanation possible in any case.
Your Honor, the prosecution moves for Kyle Cusack to be admitted as an expert on crime scene reconstruction.
And any objection from the defense?
Yes, Your Honor, I request a voir dire. Quick.
I believe that's fine.
Okay. Mr. Cusack, you are not a detective for the Denver Police Department, correct?
No, I am not.
And you are not a police officer of any kind?
No, but I've still had 19 years of experience.
But have you gone through proper police training?
No,
And in your statement, you do not write about any education you received for your position, correct?
no,
Or you do not list any training for your position?
no.
No more questions for this witness. Or we object to entering this witness as an expert.
Is there any further argument from the defense?
No, no.
And any response from the prosecution?
Your Honor, allow me to go through this real quick. It shouldn't matter whether Kyle Cusack is a police officer or a civilian. They're still trained in crime scene reconstruction as they have specialized work experience that takes time to garner because not any person can become a crime scene reconstruction expert.
At this point, I will allow for Mr. Cusack to be tendered as an expert in this case.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Cusack, are you familiar with 444 South Flower Street?
Yes, to my knowledge, that is the victim, Mackenzie Brackman's residence, and it is also where the murder happened.
Did you apply your 5-step process to this case?
Yes, first I created my witness tracking spreadsheet and a basic flow chart and timeline. Then I used these sheets to note relationships with other evidence. Then I formally conducted my analysis and developed my hypothesis and finally prepared my final reconstruction report.
Let's talk about the events that occurred on the afternoon of March 6, 2020. Based on your analysis, can you walk us through a timeline?
Yes, on this afternoon, a person matching the general height and build of the defendant approached the victim's residence. They first tried to enter through the front door, but then went around to the back gate, entered through that, and got into the residence through the back sliding glass door. And this was all captured on a Ring security system, which would have notified Mackenzie Brackman.
What conclusion can you come to based upon your analysis?
Well, my analysis points to various pieces of evidence, including a broken plate, scuff marks, an open knife drawer, and a missing knife from a knife block, implying a struggle between the perpetrator and Mackenzie Brackman.
What happened after the victim was stabbed?
The perpetrator fled out the front door, and the victim remained in the house and must have pulled the knife out of their back and then died.
So rewinding a little bit, what makes you say there's a struggle?
Can you please repeat that? My audio cut out for a second.
So rewinding a little bit, what makes you say there was a struggle?
Well, the missing knife really implies a struggle, as well as scuff marks that are shown in Exhibit 18.
Your Honor, I request my co-counsel show opposing counsel what's been marked as Exhibit 18.
That's fine.
Co-counsel, can you please pull up Exhibit 18? Thank you much. Your Honor, let the record reflect that I'm showing opposing counsel a clean and unmarked copy of what's been marked as Exhibit 18.
It shall.
First of all, Mr. Cusack, is this Exhibit 18 as you know it?
Yes, it is an identical copy.
Can you explain these scuff marks here?
They are by the back sliding glass door of the residence, and they indicate a scuffle or a struggle.
Is this picture represent a good representation of how you found the crime scene at 444 South Flower Street?
Yes, it is an identical copy and representation.
Your Honor, the prosecution moves for these photo scuff marks to be admitted into the chain of evidence.
Any objection? You're muted, counsel.
No, Your Honor. Objections at this time.
It shall be admitted as Exhibit 18.
Your Honor, permission to publish Exhibit 18 to the jury.
Granted.
So, Mr. Cusack, can you give a quick overview of what these scuff marks imply?
Well, they are positioned immediately upon entrance through that back sliding glass door I had mentioned, and they imply that the perpetrator must have gotten into a fight or struggle with Mackenzie Brackman. During this struggle, Brackman was stabbed in the back, most likely while bear hugging the perpetrator, allowing the perpetrator to stab Brackman in the back by going over his shoulder.
So, going back through the timeline, how are you able to conclude the victim was stabbed inside of his kitchen?
There are photos of blood cast-off marks and blood splatter that originate in the kitchen and stop at Mr. Brackman's dead body.
Can we see these photos?
No, to my knowledge, they have become partially corrupted.
Did this hiccup influence any of your findings?
No, I was able to see all of the photos before they were corrupted, and I was able to formulate my theory without any alteration of them.
Are you able to describe the perpetrator?
Yes, the perpetrator was the general height and build of the defendant who has previously been identified, and I saw this using the Ring videos and security camera footage.
Alrighty, no further questions, Your Honor.
Cross-examination?
Yes, Your Honor. May I proceed?
You may.
Mr. Cusack, are you tenured at your job?
Yes.
And can you tell us what that means for anyone who may not know?
Can you please explain the word tenured first?
Well, that is what I am asking you.
Can you explain the word tenure not in relation to my job?
Tenured means that you cannot be removed from your position. Basically, you have a
Objection
permanent seat.
relevance?
I am, Your Honor, I'm simply trying to show that Mr. Kyle Kuzak can really get away with anything. He can he can do anything, and he still cannot be removed from his job. It's simply.
Your Honor, may I respond?
Sure.
The ability to be removed from a job or the ability to not does not at all impact the ability of one to conduct the job properly.
Mr. Solis, does this go towards Mr. Kuzak's ability?
Yes.
Okay, I'll allow this.
So in response to your question, then, I have been at my job for 19 years and I've been conducting the same kind of crime scene reconstruction work, and I have a stable position at this job.
I'll move on. Would you say your investigation is thorough or comprehensive?
Yes, it was.
And your investigation was peer reviewed?
Yes, it was by various peers.
But you never say who reviewed it?
No, I do not.
And it could have been anyone who reviewed it?
Objection, evidence not, well, facts not in evidence.
Well, does it really need to be in evidence? He does not state in his statement that who reviewed it. It could have been anyone.
Well, if I'm able to
I'm going to stop
respond.
there. I'm going to sustain that objection. Move on, counsel.
Let's talk about the murder weapon. The murder weapon was a knife, correct?
Yes, it was a Chicago cutlery chef's knife.
And this knife, where did it come from?
It must have come from the knife block in the kitchen of Mackenzie Brackman.
And you came to this conclusion because?
It is the most likely scenario with all other evidence given in this case.
And the knife could the knife have come from someone else?
It could have, but it's not the most likely scenario.
Mr. Kuzak, you reviewed the photographs from the knife, the crime scene, correct?
Yes, I did. As
That
well
included-
as being there in person to process.
And that included the knife and the knife block?
Yes,
That also included the knife drawer?
yes, it did.
So would you be familiar with these photos if I showed you them today?
Yes.
Your Honor, I would request to show opposing counsel a picture that has previously been marked as exhibits 6, 7, and 8 for identification. Permission to constructively approach the witness.
That's fine.
Mr. Kuzak, these are pictures of the knife, correct?
Yes, and the knife drawer and knife block.
Yes, and the knife block, exactly. You reviewed these pictures to make your opinion.
Yes, I did.
These pictures are accurate,
From what I know, yes.
complete,
Yes.
and truthful.
Yes. To my knowledge.
Your Honor, at this time, defense motions to enter exhibits 6, 7, and 8 into evidence. Its authenticity has been stipulated to, and its accuracy shown.
Any objection?
No objection, Your Honor.
The exhibits shall be admitted.
May I see the murder weapon, the knife itself? This knife is not the same brand of knife from the knife block, correct?
No.
Okay, I'll move on. Let's talk about the scuff marks on the floor. Small scuff marks were found on the floor, correct?
Yes.
These scuff marks were located near the back door,
Yes, they were.
and you say these scuff marks indicate a struggle.
Yes, that is the expert conclusion I came to.
Do small scuff marks usually indicate a struggle in murder cases?
I do not know.
Objections to extrapolation.
Your Honor, I'm simply trying to show that these scuff marks have no relevance to this case whatsoever.
Your Honor, may I respond?
I'm just going to go ahead and sustain that objection. Counsel, if you want to rephrase your questions, you're more than welcome to.
Oh, that's okay, I'll move on. Mr. Kuzak, I would now like to talk about the evidence that you prepared for today.
Okay.
Your Honor, I'm constructively showing opposing counsel what has previously been marked as Exhibit 17 for identification. Permission to constructively approach the witness.
Granted.
And can we get those photos for the witness? Number 17. Yes, thank you. Mr. Kuzak, this document is the CSR witness information tracking sheet, correct?
Yes.
And this is a spreadsheet that you prepared for in this case?
Yes.
And are you the one that has custody of the spreadsheet?
Yes, I was the one that created it as well.
And you have revised the spreadsheet?
I have.
And this spreadsheet is complete?
To my knowledge.
Accurate?
Yes.
And truthful?
Yes.
Your Honor, at this time, defense counsel moves to enter Exhibit 17 into evidence as its authenticity has been stipulated to and accuracy shown.
I apologize. Any objection?
No objection, Your Honor.
It shall be admitted.
Mr. Kuzak, let's go into chronological order based on the interview report dates. The first two people listed were Josiah Mitchell and Brandon Digby, correct? If we can scroll up.
The first two people actually appear to be Taylor Perkins and Avery Becker.
Right, I'm sorry. I mean the first two people interviewed.
Yes, the dates do show that.
Do you know who Brandon Digby is?
Objection, evidence not, facts not listed in evidence.
Response?
The evidence is right here, and it has been admitted into evidence.
Your Honor, may I respond?
Sure.
Your Honor, aside from Avery Becker, Alex Cifuentes, and Taylor Perkins, none of the other people on this list are mentioned anywhere in any of the witness statements.
But it is Mr. Kuzak who created this spreadsheet, correct?
But he mentions nothing more of them.
Counsel, I am going to sustain the objection. At the same time, Mr. Souls, you are free to restate your question in a different way.
No further questions for this witness, Your Honor.
Your Honor, sorry, you go first.
Any redirect?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay.
So, Mr. Kyle Kuzak, was the entry and exit of the murder caught on camera?
Yes, it was.
Is there clear evidence of a struggle?
Yes, the scuff marks and the broken dish.
Does the defendant share the same stature and posture as the perpetrator?
Yes.
Was your investigation influenced by Detective Makowitz in any way?
No, I came to all conclusions on my own accord.
Were you able to complete a reconstruction despite the camera issue?
Yes.
No further questions.
And may this witness be dismissed. Okay. At this time, does the prosecution have any further witnesses they'd like to call?
Your Honor, the prosecution has no further witnesses.
Okay. Does the prosecution rest?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. And does the defense have any witnesses that they would like to call?
Yes, Your Honor, the defense would like to call Professor Blake Van Owens to the stand. Good afternoon, Mr. Professor Van Owens. Can you please state your name for the jury and spell your last name?
Blake Van Owen, VAN space OWEN.
What's your current position?
I'm currently a private investigator and professor.
What was your former position?
I was previously a police officer, a school resource officer, and a private security guard.
Why were you let go?
I left the police force after I injured a woman of color during an arrest. The technique I used to arrest them was fully approved by the police department, and I was cleared of any wrongdoing. I, however, disagreed that this technique should be approved, so I left the police force.
Did you ever forgive yourself for this incident? And if not, or if so, why?
I have not forgiven myself because I do not agree with many of the police practices, and I think I did something wrong. For full disclosure, I was sued by the woman, and we did come to a settlement that I can not tell you today.
Have you been accepted as an expert witness?
Yes, I've served as an expert witness in many courts in the fields of crime scene reconstruction, general police practices, and cell tower analysis.
Where have you been accepted as an expert witness?
I've been accepted as an expert witness in the U.S. District Courts of Colorado, Kansas, and Arizona, along with the state courts of Colorado, Wyoming, Nebraska, and New Mexico.
How many times have you been accepted as an expert in the field of cell tower data?
I've been accepted as an expert in the field of cell tower data 5 times.
Which side uses you the most?
I'm used only by the defense, but this is because the prosecution predictably almost exclusively uses the law enforcement personnel as their experts, as they're provided to them free of charge.
And are you getting paid for this testimony?
I am. I'm being paid $225 per hour of research and $450 per hour of testimony.
Your Honor, at this time, the defense moves to enter Professor Blake Van Owen as an expert witness under the Rules 702 in the fields of crime scene reconstruction, cell tower analysis, and general police practices, as he has shown the correct skills, knowledge, education, experience, and training needed to be qualified in these fields.
Objection from the prosecution.
Your Honor, the prosecution requests to voir dire this witness.
Go ahead.
So, to start off with, what is your formal education regarding crime scene forensics?
I got my master's degree in criminal justice.
What is your formal education regarding cell phone tracing?
This is not in my statement. Would you like me to answer?
Say again?
This is not in my statement. Would you like me to answer?
Sure, go ahead.
I took a month-long course in cell tower data.
So, first of all, what does a criminal justice degree include learning about?
This is not in my statement. Would you like me to answer?
Sure.
Criminal justice degree really covers lots of the general police practices. It also touches a bit on some of the crime scene reconstruction. And there, I believe, and I did do a class on the cell tower analysis.
So, what kind of work experience do you have?
Like I said earlier, I was a police officer, a school resource officer, a private security guard, and now a professor and private investigator.
Do any of them deal with crime scene forensics?
Yes, I'm a I'm a private investigator, which does deal with crime scene forensics.
Okay, so you mentioned being involved with cases before.
Yes.
What kind of, you were qualified as an expert in some of them?
Yes.
How many cases did you serve any sort of role, including expert roles, but also including non-expert roles?
I have served as an expert and consultant in over 100 cases.
So let me get this straight. Out of 100 cases that you've dealt with, you've been qualified as an expert in any category 12 times?
That is incorrect.
Okay, then how would it be correct?
I've testified as an expert 5 times in cell tower analysis, I believe 12 times, and another one, in addition, various other experts that is not listed in my statement.
An expert in the qualifications that you're trying to be admitted as this time around?
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
I'm talking about times that you have been qualified as an expert in the qualifications we're talking about today.
Yes, I believe that totals to 25 times.
That's still substantially less than 100.
Yes, but in various other courts, I've been 100.
Okay, so, Your Honor, the prosecution objects to this witness being qualified as an expert based on a lack of their experience and education in said categories. Their on-the-work experience is vague at best, as they do not testify to what role they played. and it's unclear what basis they have been qualified as an expert in previous cases.
Response.
Your Honor, first of all, can I just clarify with Mr. Kaiser? I apologize if that's bad pronunciation. Are you objecting to all of these expert witnesses categories, or some particular ones, or what?
Specifically, cell phone tracing and crime scene recreation.
Okay, and Your Honor, I believe that he stated as that there was a lack of background knowledge of amount of times. I'm not expert witness. I don't think I would be able to remember the amount of times I've been qualified if it's over 100 or around 100. And on the regards of him not having the correct education, he's a professor and he's been accepted many times. So take with that what you will.
Your Honor, may I respond?
Briefly.
I said that I asked how many cases he's been involved in. He said 100. He said that he's been qualified way less than 100 times. So why was he not qualified more if he is an expert in his category?
Counsel, at this point, I don't think you've laid the foundation as to that specific reason why he hasn't been qualified more. At this time, I am going to allow for Mr. Van Owens to be tendered as an expert.
Moving on. Regarding this case, what do you see?
In general, I just see general police incompetence. They skipped over key evidence. They didn't interview nearly enough people. Just a bad investigation.
What do you think of Mr. Kuzak's work on this case specifically?
Like the rest of the case, I think that Kuzak's work was very flawed.
Is there a reason why you think it's flawed?
Yeah, so one major element in Kuzak's theory is that Mr. Brackman armed himself after he had been alerted by the perpetrator approaching the home by the Ring security system, and then he armed himself with a knife from the knife block, and that knife was then later used to kill Mr. Brackman. However, he has minimal evidence on why he believes that it came from the knife block.
Okay, let's get more into the specifics of this case, and let's start with the crime scene. Can you tell us more about the knife that was in the crime scene?
Yeah, so the knife that Mr. Cusack opines was from the knife block does not even fit into the set and style or dimensions of the knife block. Cusack assumptions are critical to the prosecution's case, and they don't even make sense. So, yeah, the prosecution's case does not really make sense today either.
Can you tell us about the scuff marks at the scene?
Yeah, so another key piece of evidence that Cusack has in his case is that the scuff marks indicate a struggle. However, we don't even know when these scuff marks were created, as they cannot be carbon dated. These scuff marks could have been created a month before, a year before, 5 years before, we don't know. And yet it is critical to his case.
Let's talk about the Ring video. Did the victim, Mr. Brackman, have a Ring security system at their home?
Yes.
Can you explain, for those who might not know, what a Ring security system is? Can you explain that, please?
So a Ring security system is a series of cameras that records motion in rings.
What did the Ring video show in this particular case?
The Ring video at the victim's home shows the intruder approaching the home and entering through the back door. The Ring video does provide us with some key evidence on the build of the perpetrator.
How does Cusack use the Ring video security system in his case?
As I stated earlier, Cusack's central theory is that the victim was alerted by the Ring security system and then armed himself. However, this is not a reasonable assumption, as the notifications for the Ring video can be turned off and they didn't even bother checking.
Is there anything else that the Ring video points out?
Yes, so so Cusack's theory is that the victim was stabbed in a bear hug. However, the Ring video, in order for Mr. Brackman to have been stabbed in the shoulder where he was stabbed in a bear hug, would have required the perpetrator to be much larger than Mr. Brackman. However, this is not the case as shown in the Ring video.
Moving on. Do you know Detective Jordan Markowitz's theory?
Yes.
Can you tell us about it?
Detective Markowitz states that Avery Becker was mad that he got kicked off the mock trial team, so he went to go trash Mr. Brackman's house. However, Mr. Brackman was at the house and armed himself, and then Mr. Brackman went to confront them, and then Mr. Brackman ended up dead.
What is Mr. Kuzak's evidence of this?
Mr. Kuzak's evidence is the screenshots of the text messages that Alex Cifuentes alleges were sent by Mr. Becker to Alex Cifuentes.
What is your opinion on this?
The fact that Markowitz accepted screenshots as the breakthrough in his case is yet another example of police incompetence in this investigation. The thing about screenshots is they can be easily doctored, and it would not have been hard for Alex Cifuentes to doctor these screenshots. In addition, Markowitz had the tools and ability to download the contents of the phone, and he did not.
Now, let's move on to the cell tower data collected by Detective Markowitz. What cell tower data did Markowitz collect in his investigation?
Something that I would like to point out is the cell tower data that Markowitz did not collect. Avery Becker's alibi is Taylor Perkins, and they say that they're at the mall most of the day. However, Markowitz did not bother trying to confirm this, as if he did confirm it, it might contradict his theory, and he did not want this. Yeah, thank you.
What would you have done differently in this case?
I would have, for starters, not lost key pieces of evidence. In addition, I would have not have treated easily doctorable screenshots as definitive fact and planted them in the foundation of my case.
Is there anyone else you believe should have been looked into more?
I do. I think that Blair Rollins should have been looked into more as a suspect for this case.
Who is Blair Rollins?
Blair Rollins is a son of a disgruntled client of Mr. Brackman. Blair Rollins' father was Jonathan Rollins, who was sent to prison for murder after Mr. Brackman defended him. Jonathan Rollins, after the sentencing, shouted, "I'll get you back, Brackman, and if it's the last thing I do." And as we know, the fact that Mr. Rollins is now serving life in prison for murder, we know that the apple does not fall far from the tree, and it would not be unreasonable to assume that he did it, and it would also not be unreasonable after they had looked into evidence.
Your Honor, I'm constructively showing opposing counsel with what has been previously marked as Exhibit 22 for identification. Permission to constructively approach the witness.
Granted.
May my co-counsel please pull up Exhibit 22.
Counsel, if it's easier, I could pull it up on my own screen.
You can do that if you wish, Professor Van Owens. Apologies for the technical issues yet again, Your Honor.
Totally fine. Take your time.
Okay, I have it all pulled up. Counsel, I have the exhibit all pulled up, and I think that will be fine for entering it.
Okay, has opposition counsel viewed this? Can I just make sure? Have you guys heard this? Oh, excuse me. Sorry, guys. Excuse me again. I don't think we heard it, but if I would like to request If I could just ask if opposition counsel has seen this, and the jury and the judge.
At this point, it hasn't been tendered as an exhibit, so the jury shouldn't have seen it, but it's fine to request if Mr. Kaiser has seen it.
Yes, I have heard it before.
Okay, so can I just keep going about entering this, or should I try and find it for the jury in some way?
You can proceed, counsel.
Okay. Professor Van Owens, what did I just try and show you?
This is a audio recording after Jonathan Rollins had been sentenced for his crime.
Are you familiar with this audio recording?
Yes.
Is this recording complete?
Yes.
Is it accurate and truthful?
From when I retrieved it, yes.
Your Honor, at this time, the defense moves to enter Exhibit 22 into evidence. Its authenticity has been stipulated and accuracy shown.
Any objection?
No objection, Your Honor.
And it shall be admitted.
Okay. Okay, last question. In your professional opinion, is the evidence and conclusion from the prosecution accurate?
In my professional and scientific opinion, I believe that some of the key pieces of evidence is not accurate, and they are missing other pieces of evidence, and that the prosecution's conclusion is flawed.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Cross-examination.
Yes, Your Honor. So, Mr. Van Owen, do you believe police have come to the easy conclusion?
I do.
Could it be the easy conclusion because the case is solid?
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
Could the conclusion that police have reached be the easy conclusion because the case is solid?
In some cases, the easy conclusion could be the solid one. However, this is not the case for this case.
Yeah, sorry. Before I go on further, just please try and keep all your answers to a yes or a no.
Okay.
Could it be possible for Brockman's ring notifications to be on?
Yes, it could.
Alrighty. You say that Brockman was stabbed from behind?
Yes.
Would you describe it as a stealth attack?
Partially. Mr. Brockman was not aware. However, they would have been aware once they were stabbed.
Well, yeah. Do you know if Brockman was not alerted to an intruder by a cell phone?
I don't know that he is not, but I also don't know that he was.
Now, let me remind you, yes or no? So yes or no?
He could have been.
Is that yes or a no?
It's kind of an in-between. There's no definitive.
So, you're saying that the victim did not hear the front door being pulled on, or the notifications from their phone, or the rear door being opened?
I cannot testify to the fact that Mr. Brockman heard something. I can testify to the fact of what evidence points to, and evidence points to that he was not aware.
Wouldn't such an assumption be needed for Brockman to have been attacked within his own home, unaware?
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
Wouldn't it be an assumption for Brockman to have been stabbed in his own home without being aware?
It would be an assumption.
Do you have any concrete evidence saying that he was not alerted?
I don't, but it is not the burden of proof for the defense. It is the burden of proof for the prosecution.
But would that be an assumption?
It would be an assumption.
Isn't it investigating 101 to not make an assumption?
In some cases, it is key to not make an assumption.
Once again, yes or no?
Yes, in some pieces of investigation.
You say there's a better way of tracing cell phones?
Yes.
Did you use such methods when tracing cell phones?
I did not trace any cell phones in this case.
But couldn't such evidence exonerate the defendant?
Such evidence could exonerate the defendant. However, again, like I said, the burden of proof is not on the defense, it is on the prosecution.
Aren't you the person who reveals where police dropped the ball?
Yes.
Then wouldn't it be responsible to pull up such evidence?
Yes, and I did in my statement.
Then why have you not presented it?
I can, if you would like me to.
So you mentioned the audio recordings from the Rowland trial.
I do.
Is there any audio portions from earlier in the trial?
There is.
Did you listen to such audio?
I may have reviewed it.
Yes or no?
I cannot currently recollect.
Oh my God. So moving on to the knife. You say that the knife could not have originated from the knife block?
Yes. Oh, I say it is unlikely.
But is it still possible?
It's possible, but it is unlikely.
But it is still possible.
Yes. However, if it's unlikely, it's more likely to be the other.
Yes or
it is possible.
no?
Objection, Your Honor. Asked and answered.
Counsel, if you could ask a different question.
Sorry, my brain is mush right now. So regarding the cell phone tracing of the location, you say that police could have gained access to such records before the crime happened?
They could have, yes. Well, they could have accessed such records that would have reflected where certain cell phones were before the crime happened.
Can't you also pull them?
I could. If
Yeah, why did you not pull them then?
that is something that I do regret not doing.
Are you being paid for this testimony?
Yes.
So allow me to get this straight. You are being paid to find something against the prosecution.
I am being paid to find something against the prosecution, which there was plenty of in this case.
But are you being paid to find something against the prosecution?
Yeah.
Objection, Your Honor. Asked and answered again.
Counsel, if you could ask a different question.
Okay. You are being paid for this. Hang on one second. Your Honor, may we pull up the witness's statement?
And what is the purpose of doing that?
To reveal whether they have been saying the truth or not.
Can you lay a little bit more foundation in terms of the impeachment that you're trying to do?
Let's see. For example, the witness, when he was talking about the Rowland's trial, mentioned that he may or may not have listened to the previous audio portions.
I currently cannot recollect.
And counsel, if you want to refresh this witness, that's totally appropriate. You can go forward with doing that. And by that, I mean, if you want to show this witness the particular part of his statement that he's saying that he can't remember, that's totally fine.
So, on another matter, you state that the text messages from Alex Cifuentes are fake.
I do not say that they are fake. I said that they could be faked.
Okay. What makes you suspect that they are?
I don't. I'm saying they could be faked.
Do you have a copy of your witness statement with you?
I can pull it up.
If you want, I could just hold it up to the camera for you.
I have it pulled up now.
Can you read line 271?
Sure.
From sent to messages.
Since Cifuentes took the time to create fake messages that could implement Becker, it is also quite possible that Cifuentes took Becker's cell phone and gave it to Blair Rowlands.
What makes you suspect the messages are fake?
Something that.
Anyways, so going back to the court recording, you say that you do not remember whether you listened to it or not.
I cannot recollect, and if you would like, you can.
Read line 260 to 261.
So, as stated in my statement, I can now recollect that I did listen to it.
Can you state what line 260 through 261 states?
Rowland's behalf, so Blair was clearly present in the courtroom during the sentence hearing. I did not request a copy of that portion of the recording, but I did listen to it.
Why did you not request a copy of it?
I did not think it was relevant to the case.
Okay, no further questions.
And any redirect?
No, Your Honor.
May this witness be released?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. Does the defense have any other witnesses they'd like to call?
Yes, we would like to call Taylor Perkins to the stand.
Okay.
Hello, Ms. Perkins. Please introduce yourself to the jury.
Hello, everyone. My name is Taylor Perkins. I'm currently a student at CU Boulder, but before that, I went to CHS, Colorado High School, with Avery Becker.
How do you know Mr. Becker?
We were best friends in high school. We did absolutely everything together, whether it was class, extracurriculars such as mock trial, Fry Shack, TikToks, everything. We were always together.
And let's talk about mock trial. Were you on the team all 4 years?
No, I ended up quitting mock trial at the end of senior year.
And why did you quit?
I needed to step down to support my friend. I didn't even want to be a lawyer, and I never liked mock trial. I was only doing it to hang out with Avery. So when Avery was no longer on the team, I was no longer on the team.
And how did stepping down support your friend?
Well, Avery and Coach didn't really get along. Their egos clashed. They were always butting heads. They disagreed and had a lot of disputes, played a lot of pranks on each other. I found it all hilarious. They really put the mock in mock trial, but they didn't find it as funny as I did.
And did those pranks ever get serious?
Yeah, one of the pranks led to Avery getting kicked off of the team. And that sucked for the team because the team needs Avery. Avery carries the whole team. So yeah, everybody tried to help brainstorm ways to get him back on the team, except for Alex Fuentes.
And why not Mr. Cifuentes or Mrs.
Alex had no interest in helping Avery because Alex was always after Avery's roles. And so Avery getting kicked off the team was really good for Alex.
Objection, speculation.
Response.
Your Honor, my Taylor Perkins is simply just trying to show that Alex Cifuentes would have gotten a better role if Avery was off the team.
I'm going to overrule that objection.
And did Avery ever get back on the team?
No, unfortunately, he did not. He went back to practice one Thursday night, but he was sent home, which of course hurt his ego because he tried to apologize, but his apology was rejected. I mean, this was all still fine with me because I still got to hang out with my best friend, but not so good for Avery or the team for that matter.
And how did you spend time together?
Well, we finally had free nights. No more Friday practices, no more early Saturday mornings. We could do what any normal person would do. We went to Fry Shack. And that ended up not being our best decision, but we went.
And why was this not the best decision?
Because the mock trial team showed up and they all gave their condolences for Avery being kicked off the team. Even Alex did, even if it was a little passive aggressive. This hurt Avery's feelings because he was getting it rubbed in his face that he was no longer on his dream team. But yeah, so he got really upset about this.
And was Avery, how could you tell Avery was mad?
Well, he stormed off to the bathroom and he was so mad that he left his phone, which was like a third kidney to him, never out of reach.
And did Avery ever return?
Yes, he did. And upon his return, we left. And I can't remember if he grabbed his phone or not.
Did you see Avery the next day?
Yes, I did. He picked me up from school, as he always does. And that's when we realized that he didn't have his phone.
And what did you do when you realized his phone was missing?
We decided to skip class because we were seniors and we had already finished all of our schoolwork for that day. So there was no harm in us skipping school. So we retraced our steps to look for his missing phone.
And did you do everything you could to find this phone?
Unfortunately, we did not. I have an Android, and I thought that the only way you could use the Find My Phone feature that iPhones have is through the app, which is, of course, not on the Find My iPhone app is, of course, not on an Android. But I didn't know that there was an Find My Phone website. So going back, if I could redo it, I would have used the website. But yes, my answer is no.
And did you ever find the phone?
No, we were not able to. After retracing all of our steps, we still could not find the missing phone.
And who was the last person you saw with Mr. Becker's phone?
Alex Fuentes.
Did Alex take the phone?
I can't.
Objection.
Well,
Regulation. Sorry.
Response?
Taylor Perkins is simply trying to show that Alex could have been a possibility of taking the phone since he was the last person to be seen with it.
Counsel, I'll allow you to rephrase your question.
Could it be possible that Alex Fuentes took the phone?
here's what I can say. Alex was standing next to the phone when Avery left it. And all I know is that Avery drove Alex crazy. Alex couldn't stand all of Avery's success, and Avery needed to be out of the picture in order for Alex to shine. Avery was the best at mock trial, and Avery had what Alex always wanted, success.
Where do you think the phone went?
It may seem like a bit of a stretch, but the phone ended up with Blair Rollins.
Why do you think that?
Well, it just makes perfect sense. Blair Rollins hated Brackman. After all, Brackman's the reason her dad's in prison. And Blair's just a little weird. When you think Blair, you think hitman. You think sociopath. You think someone who could kill another and not think twice about it.
And Miss Perkins, why are you here today?
I'm here because everyone here needs to know the truth. Avery Becker did not kill Mackenzie Brackman. I was with Avery all day. I know Avery, and that person could not, would not, and did not kill anybody.
Thank you, Your Honor. Nothing further.
Cross-examination.
Yes. So Taylor, you were on the mock trial team, correct?
Yes, and I was for 4 years up until I quit at the end of my senior year.
Okay. And you would consider Avery to be your best friend?
100%.
And you and Avery thought that Mr. Brackman was a mediocre coach?
Yes, I mean, he wasn't the best coach out there, wasn't the worst, pretty average guy.
Okay, and both Hugh and Avery Becker thought he was an even more mediocre lawyer.
I mean, yeah, I was never in court with him, but yep.
And moving on, Avery came unprepared to meetings, correct?
Yeah, but that's how he thrived. Some of us thrive with preparation, some thrive with being on the fly.
Please answer these questions as a yes or no question, Ms. Perkins.
Okay.
Moving on, so they were always late for meetings, correct?
Not always, but often.
And you even state that Avery could be rash and have an inflated ego at times.
At times.
Is that a yes or no question? Is that a yes or no?
That is a sometimes to your question.
Okay.
Depends.
And even you noticed that a month before regionals, Avery came to practice the most unprepared you had ever seen her.
Yep, that is correct.
And that made Brackman heated.
Yeah. Very.
And he would get frustrated with her when she did things like this.
Like I said, they both get frustrated with each other.
So is that a yes?
Yes, that is a yes.
And he called them out on multiple occasions.
Yes, they both played pranks on each other, disputed, put the mock in mock trial.
And after those incidents, Mr. Brackman called them out. They were demoted to the B team, weren't they?
Correct.
And you decided to quit mock trial, correct?
Yes, because I'm just a great friend, so I quit in support of my best friend.
So once you quit, Brackman was forced to put Avery back on the team, correct?
Correct.
And it made Avery Becker mad that they were even demoted to B team.
I think anyone would be mad if they were demoted to a team that they shouldn't be on.
And they were so upset with Brackman's constant criticism that they wrote Worst Attorney Award on permanent marker on Mr. Brackman's beloved Porsche 911 Carrera, correct?
Thinking it was whiteboard marker, but yes.
Okay. And after that incident, Mr. Brackman kicked Avery Becker off the team for good, correct?
Correct. And Avery tried to get back on, but was shut down.
And after they got kicked off the team, Avery texted the team to try and get back on, correct?
Correct.
And one of the people that Avery texted was Alex Fuentes?
Yes.
And you and Avery went to the Fry Shack after Avery tried to get back on the team, correct?
Yes.
And you said that Avery was attached to their phone, right?
Well, I think we all are these days, but yes.
And you don't know whether or not Avery did or didn't leave the Fry Shack with their phone.
Well, I don't really keep tabs on Avery's phone, but I cannot remember.
Okay. And you even went back to the Fry Shack to see if it was there the next day.
Yes, as well as all of the other stores we had visited that day.
And you're the only one with Avery the whole day?
Yep, that is correct.
And you are the only one who can testify today in court that you were with Avery the whole day.
I know my best friend. I know that my best friend would not kill anybody. I also know that my best friend was with me all day.
So that's a yes.
That is a yes to your question.
Okay. And you guys were best friends, correct?
Yes, 100%.
Okay, thank you. No further questions, Your Honor.
Any redirect?
No, Your Honor, the defense does not.
May this witness be excused.
Thank you, Your Honor.
And does the defense have any other witnesses they'd like to call?
Yes, may I call Avery Becker to the stand?
You may.
May I begin?
Yes, you may.
Thank you. So good evening, Mr. Becker. As you know, I'm Lena Dudgeon, and I'll be asking you a few questions about the event that brought us to court today. Can you please state your full name and spell your last name for the court?
Yes, my name is Avery Becker, last name spelled B-E-C-K-E-R.
Mr. Becker, did you attend Colorado High School last year?
Yes, I did.
And when did you graduate?
Last year.
And did you participate in any extracurricular activities while at Colorado High School?
Yes, I was on the mock trial team.
Now, why did you decide to join mock trial?
My best friend Taylor and I thought it would be a fun way to get out of the house and spend more time with each other.
And so, did you have a coach while in mock trial?
Yes.
And who was that?
My coach was Coach Brackman.
And did you have him all 4 years?
Yes.
So how would you describe your relationship with Coach Brackman?
My relationship was very argumentative with Coach Brackman.
Now, why was that?
Well, Coach Brackman always criticized me for my lack of preparation and how I always deviated from the script.
Had this caused any disputes?
Yes, multiple.
So let's talk about the Tuesday night after regionals. So where were you the Tuesday night after regionals?
I was at mock trial practice.
And what were you doing at practice?
We were going over our performance and the goods and bads of our performance at regionals.
And anything specific?
Well, when it was my turn, Coach Brackman came up to me and started yelling at me how I brought the team down because I didn't stick to his
Objection,
script.
hearsay.
May I respond?
Yes, you may.
Excited utterance is not really a direct quote, just kind of what he was saying.
Does the prosecution have any further argument?
Your Honor, may I please have a brief response?
Yes.
On top of this being hearsay, I don't understand exactly how in fact this would relate to the murder and burglary and whether Avery Becker was connected.
This fight. Oh, sorry. Can I respond?
You may.
So this fight had caused, if you read the statement, it caused Avery to leave the class and eventually vandalize the Porsche, and that is one of the reasons that the prosecution believes that Avery Becker murdered him.
And Mr. Kunath, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Your response as to the excited utterance.
I stand by my objection, Your Honor.
At this point, I am going to allow this line of questioning, but I would just recommend that counsel understand just the difference between hearsay and non-hearsay testimony.
Okay, thank you, Your Honor. So what did this dispute cause you to do?
This dispute caused me to storm out of class in anger.
And where did you go after you stormed out of class?
I went out to the parking lot.
And did you see anything while in the parking lot?
Yes, I saw Coach's white Porsche.
Did you do anything when you saw the Porsche?
Yes, I was angry at him and I decided to write on his Porsche.
Did you regret that decision?
Yes, especially when I learned that what I had thought was a dry erase marker was in fact a permanent marker.
Did anybody come out of the school during this?
Yes, Coach Brackman did.
And what did he do when you saw what you had done to his car?
He kicked me off of the team.
Once he had kicked you off the team, did you do anything?
Yes, I went home.
What did you do at home?
I was crying and I told my mother that I'd been kicked off the team.
Is that all you told her?
I also told her that I would get Coach Brackman back if it was the last thing I did.
So you're mad at Coach Brackman, correct?
Yes, very.
And so what did your mother tell you during this?
My mom quickly calmed me down and convinced me to go and apologize to Coach Brackman the next day.
Did you do that?
I attempted to.
What do you mean by attempted?
Well, you see, I went to Coach Brackman's office and his secretary had told me that Coach Brackman didn't want to see me or talk to me, so I did not get the chance to apologize to him in person.
Did you have any other attempts to apologize to him?
Yes, I did text him.
What'd you say?
I told him I was very sorry for what I did to his car, and I told him I would do anything I could to get the marker off.
So let's talk about the afternoon of March 5th. So where were you the afternoon of March 5th?
I was at the Fry Shack.
Who were you with?
I was with Taylor Perkins.
Did you recognize anybody else while in Fry Shack?
Yes, there were a few other mock trial members and Alex Fuentes.
Where do you know Alex from?
Alex is a fellow teammate of mine on mock trial.
Are you guys friends?
No.
Why is that?
He was always jealous of me and my pure talent, and how I just always got the better
Objection,
of him.
speculation.
Response.
Sorry, may I please have a little bit more foundation on why it is speculation?
In terms of which,
Ms. Dudgeon,
How
if
you-
you could just repeat the question.
I asked whether him and Alex are not. I asked whether him and Alex aren't friends.
If they are not friends.
Yeah, he previously replied that they weren't friends. Then I asked why was that?
Okay, I'm gonna overrule that objection.
Thank you. May I continue?
You can proceed, Counsel.
Thank you. So if it's not you, who is Alex friends with?
Alex was friends with Blair Rollins.
And you do understand that Alex has claimed that you texted him.
Yes, but I never did such a thing.
Would you ever text Alex?
No, he would be the last person I would text, especially not for help.
Back to Fry Shack. What were you doing there?
I was just playing games on my phone with Taylor.
And do you remember handing your phone to anywhere else? Anybody else? Sorry.
No, I do not recall.
And what did you do after leaving Fry Shack?
Taylor and I went and walked around the mall.
Do you remember leaving your phone anywhere?
No, all I remember is I woke up the next morning and couldn't find my phone.
So once you couldn't find your phone, what did you decide to do?
I went to Taylor's house and we decided to skip school as we didn't have any important tests that day to go look for my phone.
So where did you go?
We retraced our steps to the Fry Shack and the mall.
How many times did you go to Fry Shack?
Twice.
And when? Sorry.
We went once in the morning and then another time in the afternoon when the shift had changed.
Did you try anything else to find your phone?
Yes, Taylor and I we had called my phone off of Taylor's phone.
Did you ever get a reply?
No, it went straight to voicemail.
What does that tell you?
Well, it tells me my phone was either dead or stolen.
Why do you say stolen?
Well, if it was stolen, somebody would immediately decline the call so that they didn't have to try to give the phone back.
Did you ever find your phone?
No, we did not.
You do understand that at the time of Mr. Brackman's death, your phone was pinging off of cell towers in the area of his house?
Yes, I understand that's what the prosecution says, but as I had lost my
objection,
phone-
lack of personal knowledge.
Response.
He is in court tonight.
If counsel wants to make some sort of offer of proof, that would be fine.
No, Your Honor, I'll just move on.
Okay.
So finally, Mr. Becker, did you kill Mackenzie Brackman?
No, I did not kill Mackenzie Brackman.
No further questions, Your Honor.
And cross-examination.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Becker, first I'd like to ask for you, in response to these following questions, to please limit your response to a yes or no answer. Do you understand the implications of this?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. First, I would like to talk about your perspective of the trial at hand. You believe yourself to be wrongly accused, correct?
Yes, I was.
You believe that the people who have truly done it are Rollins and Cifuentes, is that right?
Yes.
And you cannot confirm that Cifuentes has your phone, is that right?
No, I cannot confirm, but I have reasonable proof.
Yes or no, Mr. Becker?
No.
And you cannot confirm where your phone is that correct?
No, I lost my phone.
It somehow took you an entire day to realize that your phone was misplaced. Is that correct?
Well, we went to the fry shack in the
Yes
afternoon.
or
and I
no,
found it in the
Mr. Becker?
morning.
Objection. He's interrupting my witness.
I would agree. Counsel, if you could let the witness finish.
Would you like me to repeat the question, Mr. Becker?
Yes, please.
It somehow took you an entire day to realize your phone was misplaced. Is that correct?
Well, I went to the fry shack in the afternoon, and in the morning I didn't find it. But when hanging out with friends, you're not really on your phone. So I would not say it was an entire day.
I apologize. Is that a yes or a no?
It's a no.
And you claim that Rollins and Cifuentes had set you up. Is that right?
Yes.
And you can't provide evidence that Cifuentes and Rollins set this up. Is that right?
No, but in my opinion, that's what I believe.
And you believe Blair Rollins would commit a heinous crime based off of a bad relationship?
It wasn't just a bad relationship. Coach Brackman had sent Blair Rollins' father to prison for murder, and the apple doesn't fall far from the tree.
And from there, is that a yes or a no response?
May you please state the question again?
You believe Blair Rollins would commit a heinous crime based off of a bad relationship with Brackman. Is that correct?
Yes.
And now, specifying more on the relationship with Brackman, you and Brackman, quote, got on each other's case, end quote. Is that correct?
Yes.
And you and Brackman used to argue, correct?
We did before he was brutally murdered.
And Brackman claimed that you were lazy. Is that right?
Yes.
You thought Brackman was egotistical. Is that right?
Yes, very.
And you even believed he hated you. Is that right?
Yes.
I would like to move on to the night you vandalized Brackman's car. That night, despite your victory, Brackman yelled harsh criticism at you. Is that right?
Yes.
This in turn made you angry. Is that correct?
Yes, because I didn't deserve the criticism.
And from that, your rage caused you to vandalize Brackman's Porsche with a permanent marker.
Yes, but as I had said, I did not know it was a permanent marker at the time. I thought it was a dry erase marker that would come clean off of the car.
And despite not knowing it, you still wrote on Brackman's Porsche. Is that right?
Yes.
And your rage made you remark, during your rage, you made a remark about being kicked off the team, quote, for nothing. Is that correct?
I do not recall.
Are you saying you do not remember the events?
I do not recall saying that.
Moving on, in your rage, you stated at one point that you would get back at him if it was the last thing you did. Is that right?
I stated that, but my mother quickly calmed me down, and I did not feel that way anymore.
Yet, you stated that.
I did state it in a fit of rage.
From your rage. Okay. You only realized the severity of your actions when you were not angry or upset with Brackman. Is that correct?
Yes, I realized it after after I realized the marker was permanent and not dry erase, and after my mother had calmed me down.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Any redirect?
Yes, please. May I please do a quick one?
Sure.
Can I also have a time check? May I have a time check, please?
From my,
Okay. Thank you. Sorry, it might have just took a while to come up with mine. So
Yeah.
as you stated, you did in fact vandalize your coach's car.
Yes, I did. I was angry at him, but I had thought that the marker was dry erase, and I thought it would come straight off.
And that made you, and once you realized that, you were incredibly upset or regretful.
Yes, once I did realize it was a permanent marker, I immediately regretted my decision.
And you also went home to talk to your mother.
Yes.
And when she calmed you down, you also regretted this decision.
Yes, I did regret the decision. In fact, I tried to apologize to Coach Brackman.
And you stated that you tried multiple times. Can you explain this, please?
Yes, I tried to apologize in person and over a text.
And what exactly did you say over the text?
I told him I was very sorry for what I did and that I would do anything to get the marker off the car or repaint the car, including getting a summer job.
So you incredibly remorseful, for that, for your actions?
Yes.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
And may this witness be released. Okay, does the defense have any other witnesses that they'd like to call?
No, Your Honor.
And does the defense rest?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, and we can go ahead and proceed with the people's closing arguments.
May I start, Your Honor?
You may.
Thank you. How far will you go to get revenge? Would you vandalize someone's car? Would you break into someone's house? Would you murder someone? On March 6, 2020, Mackenzie Brackman, a beloved coach for Colorado high school mock trial team, as well as a talented litigator, was brutally murdered by the defendant Avery Becker at his home in Denver, Colorado. Not only was Brackman murdered, but his residence was unlawfully, feloniously, and knowingly broken into by the defendant. Now, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, today you are here to prove that the defendant, Avery Becker, murdered Brackman in first-degree murder and prove Avery Becker guilty with second-degree burglary and criminal mischief. Today you heard from 3 incredibly useful witnesses. Their testimonies today crafted the indisputable evidence in which Avery Becker had committed the crime. You heard from Kyle Kuzak, who proved to have 19 years of experience investigating complex crime scenes, which included home invasions, burglaries, other property crimes, homicides, and armed robberies. Kyle Kuzak walked us through the crime scene and what steps they used to come up with their conclusions. Kyle Kuzak not only justifies the conclusions they came up with, but also explains how the defendant entered the house, the struggle between the defendant and the victim, and finally the murder of Mackenzie Brackman. Alex Fuentes proved that Avery Becker had the intent of breaking in and damaging Mackenzie Brackman's home. They told us today that Avery always showed up late for meetings, always unprepared, always being called out by Brackman. Avery was even demoted to the B team due to their actions. They grew so upset that in permanent marker they wrote "Worst Attorney Award" across the hood of Brackman's car. By their own words, the defendant vandalized the coach's car, and they were willing to do more. They even said themselves that they were willing to do whatever it takes to get back at Brackman. Now, if that's not enough proof, the defendant then texted Alex Fuentes stating that they were going to go to their house to trash it. Finally, you heard from Detective Jordan Markowitz, qualified in detective work and cellular technology, solidifying the evidence given. They have 13 years of experience being in the DPD, 7 of those being a detective. Markowitz not only utilized the cell towers to pinpoint Becker's phone headed towards Brackman's house at around the same time of the murder, but was also able to utilize their detective skills to determine the likelihood of a struggle between the two. Then you heard the defense. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, today I ask you to reject the defense's theories of the case. First, you heard from Professor Blake Van Owens, an incredibly biased witness. First, they've only testified in court on behalf of the defense, and even then, they're expected to be paid between $6,000 to $10,000 per one case. Professor Blake Van Owens was never at the crime scene, yet claims to know exactly what happened there. You heard from Taylor Perkins, one of Avery's best friends. Not only did Taylor admit that Avery always came unprepared for mock trials, but they also admitted that Avery had an incredibly inflated ego. Now you may say, Taylor said that she and Avery were together the whole day, but in reality, there is no substantial evidence that backs up that theory. Only Taylor and Avery know if Avery was with them that day, both of whom have every reason to lie to you. Next, you heard from the defendant himself. They admitted that they vandalized Brackman's car and were willing to do more. They admitted they were frustrated, that they were angry, willing to do anything to get back at Brackman. In the end, they proved the prosecution's theory of knew it, wrote it, and eventually did it. The defense will try to paint a story for you and say that a student named Blair Rollins committed the crime because of something that happened when Rollins was a child. This is a distraction thrown in by the defense to turn your attention away from the person who committed the crime. Avery Becker. The prosecution understands that the burden of proof falls upon doubt, but today, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, we have proven without a reasonable doubt that Avery Becker committed the crime. Avery had the intent of unlawfully entering Brackman's home. That is second-degree burglary. They had the intent to damage Brackman's property. That is criminal mischief. And when they did break in to find Brackman home, they brutally murdered Mackenzie Brackman. On every charge, we have proved that Avery Becker is guilty, which is why you must find the defendant guilty with first-degree murder, second-degree burglary of dwelling, and criminal mischief. Thank you.
Thank you, counsel. And from the defense.
If it may please the court, good evening, Your Honor, ladies and gentlemen of the jury and the opposing counsel. I'm here to summarize this case before you. 6 witnesses have testified under oath today and paint totally different pictures of what happened on March 6th of 2020. The prosecution will drill into your mind the idea that young Avery Becker murdered his high school mock trial coach on nothing except the fact that he was kicked off of the mock trial team. That Avery Becker went to Mackenzie Brackman's home and plunged a blade into the victim's back. Detective Jordan Markowitz, a man who had taken 6 years to become a detective and uses a simple 3-day training courses to make conclusions of murder. He concluded that Avery Becker had in fact traveled a certain route to the victim's house based on cell tower pings to from Avery's phone, in which Avery had in fact lost. He prepared a map that illustrates where and when the pings occurred. Not only did the map include both Becker's and Brackman's houses, they included a third house, the house of Blair Rollins. Markowitz allegedly failed to investigate Blair Rollins as a suspect, even though Mackenzie Brackman had represented Rollins' father months before the murder in a case that had resulted in Rollins' father getting sentenced to life in prison. And not to mention that Blair Rollins himself had been missing since the day of the murder. At the crime scene, footage was found on a Ring camera video that Markowitz thought to completely prove the suspect. The Ring footage actually proves nothing except the fact that the suspect was of similar shape and size to Mr. Becker. It doesn't show any face, it does not show any identification, and does not show any evidence. Markowitz zeroed in on Becker due to a string of texts between Avery Becker and Alex Fuentes. Markowitz claimed this evidence through nothing but screenshots. Markowitz never physically had the phone of Alex Fuentes and cannot prove those texts to be real. Witness Alex Fuentes claims to be best friends with Avery Becker. Avery, in fact, completely denies this. As Fuentes claims that Avery texted him days before the murder, but Alex completely denies this, saying that would in fact be Avery completely denies this, saying that would in fact be the last person that he would ever text. So Fuentes admits that she played games on Avery's phone at the Fry Shack the day before the murder, also being the day that the phone went missing. So Fuentes also admits that he did absolutely nothing to alert the victim about the supposed threat made by Avery in the text messages. He did not alert the police, he did not alert the victim, he did not alert anybody. Blake Van Owen convincingly disputes the prosecution's theory of death, as it is almost near impossible to stab somebody in that theorized way, let alone how easy it is to forge text messages. The accused Avery Becker has been charged with literal felony murder based on the flimsiest of evidence. He had lost his phone and been kicked off of the mock trial team. He spent March 6th looking for a cell phone with his best friend, Taylor Perkins. The same Taylor Perkins has absolutely no obligation to be here tonight, but is because she's testifying for her best friend in which she was with the day of the murder. Now you tell me, who's more likely to commit an act full of violence and hate? Do you, the jury, honestly and truly believe that the prosecution did not consider Blair Rollins as a suspect? His name was pinned on that map. Why in the world would his name be pinned on that map? Blair Rollins fit the original criteria of somebody who would have committed this crime. In a statement, Detective Markowitz claimed that the first person they would look into would be a disgruntled client. Blair Rollins is the son of this disgruntled client, the son of a man who was convicted of murder and went to prison at the hands of Mackenzie Brackman. This, ladies and gentlemen, is motive, not being kicked out of a mock trial team. There was a ring and there was a ping, a doorbell system, the most basic of household security, and a ring which proves absolutely nothing. A ping off of 3 cell towers, in which are highly likely to be inaccurate. The ping that proves Alex Fuentes' phone, a phone in which he no longer owns, and texts in which nobody today in court can prove to be real. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, after carefully reviewing this case and the evidence presented and not presented, we ask the prosecution to prove the guilt of Avery Becker beyond reasonable doubt and respectfully request a verdict of not guilty. Thank you.
And any rebuttal?
Your Honor, may I request a time check?
That's fine. I think you ended with 10 seconds.
Okay. Oh, 53 seconds. Okay. May I start? Okay. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the defense's case has holes in it, gaping holes that show you just how flimsy their case is. They would rather have you believe that some 7-year-old clip of Blair Rowland's father is more reliable evidence than Avery Becker texting Alex Fuentes days before he broke into Mackenzie Brackman's house that he was going to break into Mackenzie Brackman's house. Their one expert witness is being paid thousands of dollars to essentially criticize other people's work without giving any other, their one expert witness is being paid thousands of dollars to testify in court today. Someone who has never even testified in prosecution. And someone who, again, never visited the crime scene. Thank you.
Okay, and so I believe that will conclude this trial. Good job, everybody.
Thank you.
I think, are the scorers, do you guys submit them or do you guys need a couple minutes? Do you guys, also it's like 8:30. I'm happy to do comments and stuff. If you guys want, I have a bunch of notes that I took. Otherwise, if you guys want to get out of here, that's fine too.
I'm going to have you guys go ahead and do a few comments until we receive the scores here in our room here. And I'll let you know once we have them, and then we can stop the room at that point in time if that's okay with you guys.
That's fine with me. I'm going to let the scorekeepers go because I'm sure that you all have seen enough of me right now. So go ahead.
Carl, you want to start off?
Yeah, that's fine. I can go. My name is Carl Berg. I'm a construction attorney. I'm in Colorado Springs. I've been practicing for over 30 years now, representing contractors and subcontractors. I've been doing the mock trial for about 15 years now. I'm continually impressed by the level of effort on all of your behalf. I know it takes a lot of time and effort to put these things together. And I think overall, both the teams did very well, particularly with the difficulties associated with this particular format with the Zoom and the technology issues. Just a couple points I'd like to make. I didn't really understand the prosecution's theme of the case, other than perhaps revenge. I got the defense theme, ring and a ping. Ms. Dudgeon tied it in well at the end. Didn't really hear it during the trial. What everyone needs to remember in a trial, whether it's a bench trial or a jury trial, is that the judge or the jury know none of the facts. And there's something called the curse of knowledge that attorneys suffer from, because you know all the facts and we know none of the facts. So you have to put your case together so that you fill in the puzzle of that case in a comprehensive and understandable way for the jury. And sometimes it's difficult to understand exactly what transpired. So I recommend that you try to focus on what the jury doesn't know when you're putting your case together. A couple things, an expert witness, the first expert witness, Miss McLean, she said, yeah, a lot. That wouldn't be something an expert witness would ever say. You need a little more a formality. Going to the curse of knowledge, she testified something about a CBR. I don't know what a CBR is. Once again, you have to explain. And it was just kind of glossed over. What is a CBR? Explain it. Let the expert become the teacher. When an expert becomes a teacher, they're more credible. There was a lot of use of first names of the witnesses during the trial. In a real trial, the formality requires that you, identify people by their last name rather than their first name. Never respond to opposing counsel. There was some interplay between counsel. In any trial, I don't care about opposing counsel. I only care about Ms. Jens, who's the judge. Okay, so she's the only one I respond to. I never speak with opposing counsel. I just speak with her, and she'll rule. Okay. Whenever in doubt, there was some voir dire issues, in terms of the qualifications. If you're in doubt, always say it just goes to credibility or the weight of the evidence, not the admissibility, because the expert was clearly qualified, and the voir dire was appropriate to try to destroy some of the credibility, as Judge Yen stated. But that's really what your response is. Goes to the weight, not the admissibility and the credibility of the witness. We tender experts. We don't request an expert be admitted. We tender the expert. Judge, I tender so-and-so as an expert in whatever the discipline is. Those are my general comments. But once again, I think you all did a very good job, particularly in light of the venue, and you have a right to be proud of yourselves. So thank you.
If I may briefly. So I've been a criminal defense attorney for about a dozen years, and I'm also a relief judge in the city of Aurora. And I have seen 1 to 3 year attorneys do pretty much exactly what I saw everybody do here today. So I think that just speaks to your level of commitment to learning the rules, doing what I think, actually preparing, presenting the evidence that you wanted, and actually getting into the case. And I think that's awesome. So big thumbs up to everybody. I think that's awesome.
And I won't take long because I'm sure you all had better plans for your Friday night, but my name is Daniel Cohen and I am a prosecutor. I've been a prosecutor in Denver now for 12 years. And I just want to say that it's amazing what you all have done. It's exhausting and hard work. So everyone take a nice big breath now and relax. The one thing I want to just echo what was said earlier is you should always, what Carl said earlier, when you're talking about doing a trial, when you're talking about presenting evidence to a jury, the question should always be the purpose of the words, the questions. Build a trial backwards. What is the end point that you're trying to get to? And then how do you get to that point with the evidence that you have? But you need to start elementary. Some of the best advice I've gotten is act like a 5-year-old asking questions. Who did it? What happened next? Why did you do that? Where did you go? The simplest questions are often the right questions in any trial. And whenever you have things written down, watch your speed because people always read faster than they speak. But otherwise, you guys did an amazing job, and I'm impressed with each and every one of you.
And if there is time for me to make comments, I'm happy to. I also want to say I'm very impressed with you guys. Your gut instincts on these objections were really, really good. I will say that I did get the prosecution's theme. It was how far would you go? Am I right about that? Yes, no? Maybe I didn't then. The big thing that I would say in terms of, just like my big critique right now is just your guys' tone with each other and with your witnesses. There is a big way to, you know, kind of articulate and show the jury that you're wiping the floor with this witness or with this prosecutor or with this defense attorney without doing it in like a snarky, sassy way. There's like a very like fine line between professionalism and kind of coming across as like, you know, why is this lawyer acting like this? In terms of the witnesses, I think you guys did a really good job. You knew your cases really well. And I really liked that part of it. And just, you know, for like specifically like opening, I really liked the reference to old dictators. And I really liked how you laid out, you did a very good job of making a good timeline of what the case was going to be for the prosecution side. And then for the defense side, I really liked, again, your road mapping and explaining to the jury what they were going to see and hear. I also noted that I liked the listen carefully to the testimony you hear and listen to what you don't hear. That's very, very good. And in terms of like dealing with these experts and these more like complex evidentiary and legal issues, I think you guys did a really good job dealing with those nuances. And like I said, your gut instincts on these objections were very correct. And, you know, I've seen lawyers that have been practicing for a long time that don't do that. So that was a very good job. And other than that, you know, it was very fun to judge you guys and watch you guys. So good job, everybody.
I do have all the scores now, so thank you guys so much. Go get your rest. Be ready for tomorrow. Thank you for volunteering with us tonight, scorers and judge. And we will see you guys bright and early in the morning, all right?
Thank you all
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all. Have a good